Today, we're going to use what we know about complementary, supplementary, and vertical angles to find the unknown values of angle measures. Let's look at number 1. You'll see that you have two intersecting lines, which means that these are going to create vertical angles. Well, I know that vertical angles can make opposite angles congruent to each other. So this means that 80 degrees is congruent to Z. So I know that Z has a value of 80 degrees. But how can I use this to find X and Y? I know that both X and Y are congruent to each other because they are also vertical angles. But I need to use some other information. If I look at 80 and X, I know that together they form this straight line. So that means that together 80 and X are supplementary angles. So to figure out the value of X, I would subtract 180 minus 80, which would give me 100. So the value of X is 100 degrees. Since X is vertical to Y, that means that these are congruent, so Y is also equal to 100 degrees. So X is 100 degrees, Y is 100 degrees, and Z is 80 degrees. For number 2, I can see that X is opposite or vertical to 62 degrees, so X is equal to 62 degrees. I know that Y and 62 degrees form a supplementary angle because they create this straight line. So to find Y, I would do 180 minus 62, which would give me 118. So Y has a value of 118 degrees. Since Y is vertical to Z, Z is congruent, so it is also equal to 118. So for this problem, X is 62 degrees, Y is 118 degrees, and Z is also 118 degrees. Now I want you to try 3 through 6. Let's check your answers. For number 3, X should be 127, Y should be 53, and Z should be 127. For number 4, X is 131, Y is 131, and Z is 49. For number 5, X is 40, Y is 40, and Z is 140. For number 6, X is 108, Y is 72, and Z is also 72. If you have questions about any of these, let me know now. Now let's look at some more problems. If I want to find the missing angle measure here, I can see that all 3 of these angles together, so this, and this, have an overall value of 133 degrees. Well, if I know that this angle is 47 and this angle is 80, I can take those and subtract them from 133 to find what I'm left with for X. So I would do 133 minus 80 minus 47, which would give me 6 degrees. For this problem, I see that this is a right angle, and since these are right angles, I know that together these equal 90 degrees. So these are complementary. To find out what X is, I can subtract 74 from 90, which is going to give me 16 degrees. So X has a value of 16 degrees. For this problem, I can see that 142 degrees and X create a straight line. Since they create a straight line, these are supplementary to each other, which means they will add up to 180. So to find the value of X, I'm going to subtract 180 minus 142. And that gives me a value of 38 degrees for X. For this problem, I can see that X is opposite of 53. So that means X has a value of 53 because these are vertical angles. And I know that all vertical angles are congruent. Now for this problem, there's a lot going on here. But if I focus just on X, I can see that I have some intersecting lines, and X is actually opposite of this angle right here, which is 14. So that means that these are vertical angles, which means that they are congruent. So for this, x has a value of 14 degrees. Now, if you could not see that, you could also do what I did here, which shows you that together 46x and 120 create this straight line. So since together they create this straight line, you could have subtracted 120 and 46 from 180 to get left with 14 degrees for x. Now for this problem, you'll notice that together, these create a complementary angle because they equal 90 degrees. But if I need to find x and not just the value of the missing angle measure, there's a few different ways I could do this. I could see what this angle measure equals by subtracting 90 minus 53. And if I did that, I would get 37. So then I would use that to find this measure. Or I could know that if I add this to this, I'm going to get a total of 90 degrees, and I could put that together and make an equation and solve that. Either way would be acceptable here. So what I did was added 53 plus 4x minus 7 to get 90. Well, I would simplify this equation first by doing 53 plus negative 7, which gives me 46, and then I have plus 4x. Well, to solve this, I would need to subtract 46 from both sides, and that would leave me with 4x on the left side, and then 90 minus 46 is 44. Then I would divide by 4 on both sides, which would leave me with x equals 11. You also, for this one, could have said, well, I know that 90 minus 53 gives me a value of 37. So I know that this angle is equal to 37 degrees. And you could have said, well, I know that whatever this angle is, it's 4x minus 7, and it equals 37. So you could have solved this two-step equation by adding 7 to both sides. These would cancel, and I would get 4x equals. Then 37 plus 7 is 44. Then to get x by itself, I would divide by 4 on both sides. These would cancel and leave us with x equals, and 44 divided by 4 is 11. So either way, you are going to get that x has a value of 11. I want you to find the measures of x, y, and z here. X has a value of 96 degrees, y has a value of 84 degrees, and z has a value of 96 degrees. Now this says find the measures of x and the measure of angle 1. So whenever you see this, it actually reads measure of angle, and then this says specifically 1. Well, first let's start with the measure of x. I know that this is vertical to this, which means that these are congruent to each other. So let's first find out what x equals. I know that 3x plus 18 is congruent to 7x minus 2. So I can create an equation. Well, when I do this, I can solve, but I notice that I have a variable on both sides. Well, when I solve an equation, I really just need a variable on one side by itself. So I'm going to move one of my variables. I'm going to move 3x, and since it's a positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Well, 3x minus 3x is 0, and I'm left with 0 plus 18, which is 18. Now on this side, I have 7x minus 3x, and if I have 7 x's and take 3 x's away, I'm left with 4x. And then I also have minus 2. Well, now I need to find out how to get x by itself. So I need to get rid of this minus 2 first, so I'm going to add 2 on both sides of this equation. Well, 18 plus 2 is 20. And then these would cancel, and I would be left with 4x. Well, then I would divide by 4 on both sides. 20 divided by 4 is 5, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1x is just x. So that means that x has a value of 5. Well, if x has a value of 5, then I can use that to figure out what these angles measure. I can plug in 5 for x. So 3 times x is the same as saying 3 times 5. Well, 3 times 5 is 15. So 15 plus 18 is 33. Well, if I did that over here, 7 times 5 is 35, and 35 minus 2 is 33. So these angles have a measure of 33 degrees. I can use that to find the measure of angle 1, because I know that both of these are supplementary to angle 1. So since I know that these angles have a value of 33 degrees, the measure of angle 1 can be found by doing 180 minus 33. Well, if I do 180 minus 33, I'm going to get 147. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to 147 degrees. Now, find the measure of x here. For these, I can see that the relationship between these two angles that I am given is that they are supplementary. That means that together they add up to 180, which I know because together they form this straight line. So if I do 8x plus 46 and I add it to 62, I'm going to get 180. Well, over here I would need to simplify. So 8x plus 46 plus 62 is equal to 108. Then I would solve like normal, so I would subtract 108 from both sides of this equation. These would cancel to leave me with 8x equals 180 minus 108 is 72. Then I would divide by 8 on both sides, and that would leave me with x equals, and 72 divided by 8 is 9. So that means that x has a value of 9. For this problem, I can see that I have vertical angles. So since these are vertical, I know that if I added x plus 16, that would be the same as subtracting 4x minus 6. So I can set both of these equal to each other to figure out what x equals. So for this, I would say x plus 16 equals 4x minus 5. Well, again, I want all of my variables on one side. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and I want you to be careful here. So these would cancel to leave us with 16. But 4x minus x, a big mistake is to get rid of these x's, but that's not true. There's actually an invisible 1 here. So this is like saying 4x's minus 1x. Well, that equals 3x. And then I still have this minus 5. Well, now I would add 5 on both sides. 16 plus 5 is 21. These would cancel, and I would be left with 3x. Then I would divide by 3 on both sides. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and these cancel to leave me with x. So that means that for this problem, x is equal to 7.